going. If you're receiving this video, it's because you are ready to play my favorite game, Are You Offended? I made you watch possibly either The Nightman Cometh from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, or maybe something else. Chances are, there's a reason I show you that particular episode, not just to wrap up dramatic structure, but to also emphasize a point. So I made the mistake of showing that particular episode maybe a little bit too early in a freshman year experience class. And what ended up happening was that somebody got offended. So much so that anytime I would say any bad word in class or allude to anything lewd, crude, lascivious, whatever, this particular individual would go, "Did you hear what he said?" I'm going to write this down. I called this particular student my little echo, because every time I'd say something bad, she would echo it back. This is about 10 years ago. It's been a while. So I got the evals back, and in the eval, this particular student said, "He promotes sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Should seek the help of a mental professional. He's bad." Now, the evals have always been pretty kind for the most part, so this one, I knew it was this student. I remember taking it to my department chair, and I remember saying, did you see this one? Did you see this? And his reaction to it was, "Yeah, you're going to get those." And I was like, why? Why am I going to get those? And he was like, sometimes people just, they hate your face, and there's nothing you can do about it. Come to find out later, the thing about the episode that upset this student the most was not what I predicted it would be. And what is usually the thing that upsets people the most, the scene with the R word. Rhymes with tape, right? I don't want to get banned by YouTube. But yeah, it's that scene that mentions that word. And sometimes that word is enough to trigger a response. My take on it is it's not a joke about sexual assault. It's a joke about these idiots thinking it is and then trying to stage it artistically. But even with that, I haven't really found anyone who is really so upset about the episode that they go to the extreme measures that someone else did. But it got me thinking, why is it that people are offended by the things that they are offended by? Why are we offended by stuff? So I looked it up, and there are some main reasons why we get offended, and they mainly come down to the fact that we don't have context. We need context. By the way, here's what context means. Circumstances that form the setting for an event, statement, or idea, and in terms of which it can be fully understood and assessed. That's what context means. Write it down. Thank you very much. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you some stuff and describe some stuff and give you a watch list. And I'm simply going to ask you the question, are you offended? If you are, yes. And you don't have to explain yourself. If you are, mark yes. You don't have to explain yourself, but if you feel like it's a bit cathartic by doing so, then go ahead. If you're not offended, write no. So basically the assignment is to watch or listen to something, and then I should get back just a bunch of yes or no, and explanations if you care to give them. Now, the things I'm sending you, are they really all that offensive? They were at the time, maybe not so much now, or maybe they are now, because times have changed. Times are always changing. The only thing constant, change. So, let's start with some artwork. Check this out. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some artworks, and I got 3 works of art for you. Again, a reminder, this is what the assignment is. Just look at the stuff and then take out a sheet of paper. Actually, don't tear it out, or in your case, maybe email it to me,
and just tell me number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 if you're offended or not. So this is number 1. This is a museum piece called What is the Proper Way to Display the American Flag? It's by a performance artist by the name of Dred Scott. If you were to walk into a room, you would find a pedestal with a book on it where you were invited to look at the picture that's on the wall. It's a picture of soldiers, dead soldiers, with the American flag draped over it. And you were invited to write in the book how you felt about it. However, if you were going to do it, you would have to walk across the American flag. So tell me, yes or no, number 1, are you offended or not? Context! Right, so of all the things that I show you, this was the one that tends to offend people the most, I'm going to say. Because it's walking across an American flag. And what could be more unpatriotic than that, right? Well, this was put out around the time that there was a bill in Congress about the desecration of the American flag and how they were willing to fine people or just flat out put them in jail. And so Dred Scott, who at the present is very much a leader in the Black Lives Matter movement, came up with this exhibit. And so the question isn't necessarily what is the proper way to display the flag, but would you step on it if no one was watching? Number 2, okay. Are you offended or not? Andres Serrano in 1987. This is one picture out of about 40 in an exhibit called Immersions. And all it is apparently a crucifix. And the difference between a cross and a crucifix has Jesus Christ nailed to the cross on it, so it's called a crucifix. And supposedly, this was a picture of a crucifix suspended in the artist's own urine. So, question number 2, are you offended or not? Context! Okay, so yeah, this is pretty much a close second to the one that people get offended by the most, and totally understandable, especially if you are religious in any way, shape, or form. Here's the thing that's important about this, though. When Senator Jesse Helms saw this or heard about this particular exhibit, he found out that it was funded by the government. And so a big question started circulating. Should government fund the arts? And if so, which arts should they fund? This became, and still is, a vastly important question to this day. And this is the exhibit that started it all.
Okay, now let's look at some YouTube stuff. So, I'm going to attach the links after this, but I'm going to describe what you're about to see here in just a bit. So, first one I'm going to have you go to is a Rowan Atkinson clip. He's the guy who plays Mr. Bean, but in a very different light. This is him as a headmaster calling out people's names. And the second thing I'm going to have you take a look at is a clip from a comedian by the name of George Carlin, and it's called The 7 Words You Can't Say on Television. It's his introduction that leads up to it. It's about 7 minutes long. It is not the entire routine, like I said, but it's the introduction to the routine. And then the other thing I'm going to send you is another comedian by the name of Bill Hicks. Bill Hicks, this is his 13th appearance on the David Letterman show, and it got banned. And I will admit, of all the things that I show you, this is the one that is probably dated the most in terms of there are things that Bill says that can be, by today's standards, viewed as being a bit offensive or a lot offensive. But I think he'll get you back at the end. But the big thing with that clip is, why do you think Bill was banned? What do you think? Why do you think they banned Bill? All right, so the Mr. Bean clip, the George Carlin clip, and the Bill Hicks clip. Here are the links to them.
Number 3. All right, now's the time to go to the YouTube playlist that I probably sent you via email and go watch the Rowan Atkinson or Mr. Bean clip. Context! Right, so the thing that you need to know here is that Rowan Atkinson, also known as Mr. Bean, had a one-person show where he did all the Mr. Bean stuff, but he also did things like this, where he actually talked to the audience. And in this case, that routine, he did it over in Britain, but he didn't use bad words. He used funny words like notlob and onomatopoeia. It's only when he came over to the United States they changed it to bad words, and it's just a difference between our two cultures. That's it. That's the routine. So, number three. Number four. This is the George Carlin clip that I sent you. Number four, let me know if you are offended or not. Context. Right. So George Carlin is one of the, kind of a holy trinity of comedians who everybody loves. And George Carlin did that routine, and he actually won a Grammy for it. He won a Grammy for it. However, they decided to play it at 4 in the afternoon during a afternoon drive-by, and someone got offended by it. And so the radio station got sued, and the case went all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court adopted the 7 words you can never say law on television that exists even to this day, although they didn't consider cable. So tell me, did that offend you or not? All right, next clip, Bill Hicks and his band performance on David Letterman. Go ahead and check that out. And now here's some context. So yeah, in 1993, some of those jokes were too edgy, and they're definitely a little too edgy now. But there's 2 things I really want you to know about Bill. The first is that when you submit as a comedian, when you go on a show like Letterman or any of the late shows, you submit your stuff in a written form, and it gets approved by the producers. So what you saw was approved by the producers. Second thing I want you to know is Bill Hicks was dying of pancreatic cancer, and he just wanted to do one more Letterman show. And then when he got back to a hotel room, they told him his performance was banned. And what you're seeing is Letterman, many years later, apologizing to Bill Hicks's mother for banning him all those years ago. So tell me, did this offend you or not? So after I recorded this, I thought some more context was needed. So here's about 5 more minutes explaining each one of those clips. I encourage you to watch it just for a little bit more context.
Context! Okay, so the Miss Bean clip, or the Rowan Atkinson clip. So Rowan Atkinson had this one-person show that he would do in the 90s. And as the story goes, he had the same routine in England, over in Britain, London, over there. But he didn't use bad words, or quote-unquote bad words. He used ridiculous-sounding words. Notlob, onomatopoeia, balarb. Just ridiculous words. And that was enough. That made the audience laugh. But then he came over to America. He tried the same thing. Nobody laughed. Until he started using bad words. So in this case, it's a difference between cultures. What's funny in one place isn't necessarily what's funny in the other. And he was just reading the room. The second clip I showed you, the George Carlin clip. George Carlin, one of the smartest, funniest comedians to have ever taken a mic. That was him in his hippy-dippy weatherman phase, yeah. And that routine won him a Grammy, I believe. Yeah. And the thing that he always regretted about it, though, is that they played that routine. Again, this is like in the 70s. They played that routine. A California disc jockey played that routine at 4 in the afternoon, and a man was picking up his son, and his son heard that routine, and the man got offended, so he sued the radio station, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court ruled that in favor of the man. And it became policy, it became the Federal Communication Policy, FCC policy, that between the hours of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., there are 7 words that you can't say on television. Now, they didn't really take into account cable. But still today, and it's the reason why Howard Stern went to satellite. It's because there are 7 words that you probably won't hear on any of the main television stations that you can get without cable. So, that's that one. The Bill Hicks one is, this one I'll admit may be a little bit personal. Bill Hicks is one of the only famous people to ever visit me in a dream and give me notes while I was working on a play. But anyway, he was also one of the comic greats. His stuff translates in some ways very well even today, and in some ways it doesn't translate at all. So there are 2 things I want you to know about that clip. And the first is, in that clip, Bill is dying of pancreatic cancer. And he wanted his last stand-up set to happen on Letterman stage. The second thing I would want you to know is that Bill actually, and every comedian has to do this, had a transcript of the routine he was going to do sent to the producers, and they okayed that routine. The producers of the Letterman show okayed it. And so he did it as written, verbatim, and then got back to his hotel and was informed that they were going to cut it, but hey, they'd love to have him back in 6 months. Well, Bill knew that the chances of him being alive in 6 months were pretty remote, and so he took it very personally. And years later, the clip that I showed you is actually Dave Letterman talking to Bill's mom and apologizing for ever cutting it, because Bill was ahead of his time. But he was banned. He was banned, and not for the reasons that you might think. Not for the abortion stuff. Not for the Christian stuff. He was banned because of the stuff he did in the beginning. Because the producers of the Letterman show thought that there was a possibility that they might get those people on one day. So, yeah, in this case, it wasn't the general public that was necessarily complaining, but just some producers who got scared. So, here's what you do next, and that is you take your yes/no sheet and you send it to me, and that's it. That's it. So you should be emailing me number 1, yes. Number 2, yes. Number 3, yes. Number 4, no. Number 5, no. I forgot how to count. But that's what you should be sending back to me. Any questions? You know my email. Shoot me an email, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And have a great day.
Meow.